Okay, well, thanks everyone and welcome. This is the first organizing meeting for the first annual Scientific Python Developer Summit. I think everyone has a sort of basic idea, but a lot of this came from Stéfan and I's experience in the early days of the SciPy conference when it was really a developer meeting. And we also had these like cross-project sprints that we used to host at Berkeley and Enthought in Texas. And it seems like there's much less opportunity now for these cross-project communications, and the ecosystem's gotten much more complicated, and there's a lot more people depending on it. So I think it's even more important to do that kind of work now. So really this idea is for us to figure out ourselves what to do. Stéfan and I have ideas, Brigitta has ideas, I'm sure lots of you have ideas. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to start today with a very brief discussion about logistics, and then we'll go into some of the meeting topic ideas. But the idea is we're going to be figuring out the topics ourselves. There are some things we've got in our mind that we'll discuss, but hopefully this will happen much more dynamically. We're going to be setting up some sort of mind mapping tool. Brigitta might say something about that later, or we'll send an email later this week. And then we're hoping everyone can work there, figure out what they want to work on. And we should really take advantage of the fact that this is a unique opportunity for us to work outside of our normal communities, and also take advantage of each other's expertise and knowledge and skills. Okay, Stéfan, would you like to say a little bit about logistics and timelines on things?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the most urgent thing for us to do next is to get everyone's flights booked. So we will do that through the UC travel agency, and each one of you will be receiving a special booking code, and then you can just phone the travel agency with that booking code and book your flights. And yeah, we'll also put the exact dates on the website so you know exactly when to stay. I think we put it in the email as well.
Can I just interrupt you real quick?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so just one big background thing is we have funding to cover everyone, but we would like to have, with that funding, the ability to do a summit next year without raising money. We'll start raising money over the future. So a few people had mentioned that they currently had grants that would cover funding for this. And if that's the case, that would be great. We do have funding, but basically, if you're able to cover the funding this year, you'll be contributing to the funding for the subsequent year. But of course, we do have funding for everyone. It's just that that's going to mean we'll have to get funding for next year. Stéfan.
Right. So we'll try and get the flights booked as soon as possible, and then in terms of accommodation, we'll make a group booking, and I'm going to try and organize that on our side, so you don't have to worry about it. So once I know everyone's arrival and departure dates, I can hopefully make that booking. And yeah, you can let me know if you have any special requirements that I should be aware of.
Yeah, I guess also visas for people who need visas or invite letters or stuff. We probably should get the month might be wrong. Yep, September is wrong. I got the 9 a.m. Yeah, and so I guess. Is there any questions to Stéfan at this point? We'll be sending more information about logistics out soon, but things that we may be missing or not thinking of would be great. And I don't know if people are raising their hands in my view, so if people see me not paying attention, just let me know.
I should be able to see. Yeah, and feel free to reach out on Discord as well if you have any specific questions, and we'll try and put the answers to all those questions on the website so that they're for everyone to read.
And then, I think it might be the case that not everyone is in the Discord, so maybe we can add an invite link to the HackMD.
Sure.
And also in the HackMD, if you can put the channel that you created for that.
I think I don't think they can join with the link. I need to add them, but I will do that in short.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I added the Discord link at the top.
Should say is, our intention is to keep as much of this open and public as possible. Like we probably will have a private conversation channel just for like little, logistical issues or things like that if people need stuff and don't want to talk in front of everyone. But we should really be like, some of this work should take place in individual project repos. We'll have a community place to work, but what we want to do is like plan some work that we're going to work on. But then if it turns out someone's really knowledgeable and has a better idea, we don't want to just not find out until after the meeting. So probably people won't pay attention, but if people are motivated, we want to have their input as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to the meeting topics, and I'm just going to say just a few words, and then Stéfan and a few other people will talk, and then we'll have a general discussion. But just this is basically just to give you a flavor of the kinds of work we're thinking about. And really, I think everyone should think about the fact that this is a somewhat unique opportunity to work on cross-project concerns. I think for a large number of us, this might be the first time we get to come together for a full week and work with such a diverse group of people and projects. And we're also planning ahead, and we want to continue the work afterwards. So I think we should really think big in terms of the long-term trajectory of what's happening. I think that one of the outcomes might be we get something implemented, but then we also have an idea for some large grant for some subset of us for some future work or a large-term roadmap. So I think we want to make sure we're doing something that we can implement something usable during the week. But I think we should also start thinking about roadmaps long-term. And sort of set this up so that as a community we've got a much more long-term connection with each other. And this may not include each individual member of us. Different people may come in and out, but this is the seed group to hopefully get things started. And hopefully many of you will be able to continue on. And we're not asking for extra work. We're hoping that this will overlap with your current work and simplify your lives. So Stéfan, do you want to give a little bit of information about a couple topics?
Sure, I can just start. I'll maybe talk about the two ideas that I wanted to work on: build systems and sparse arrays. I'll just say up front that I'm incredibly excited to have this group of people together and for us to meet. It's so great that we finally get to spend a little bit of time together working on the things that always fall in between the cracks. And I think getting our system sorted out and resolving technical debt and building those tools that help all the projects. I think it really benefits us all in the long run. So thank you very much for being here and for being involved. Okay, so I'll present the build system idea first, just to say, again, this is the work will be set up by the group. What I'm saying here is just my idea of how it should go. It doesn't mean that's the way it's going to be in the end. So it's just a seed to sort of start things off. So I've seen that Meson is coming up as a build system in several of the core projects in SciPy, NumPy. We've adopted into Scikit Image now, and I really like what I see. I really like how easy it's been to integrate Meson into our projects, how fast the builds are, how easy it's been to resolve issues that came up. So I think it'd be nice to have some standard configurations written up and explain on how to use Meson, because right now it's not always straightforward for a project to port to Meson. Editable installs just arrived, but it's not always obvious how to use that. It's a little bit different from what we had with pip install -e before. And then we often use dev.py, which is the little tool that we refactored out of SciPy to act as a user interface for building tools. So we're starting to use that tool in more projects to provide a unified interface for people to build with. And yeah, so, all of this is basically new, and I'd like to see some more documentation around that, some common patterns written up. Leah Wasser has been doing a great job at writing up or taking up the enormous challenge of summarizing what the status of the packaging ecosystem is. And I'm kind of interested in this smaller part of all of that. So, doing technical work around Meson integration, providing examples, providing common configuration, and documentation. Yeah, so that's sort of that idea. And then the second idea I wanted to mention was that we have a grant to work on sparse arrays in SciPy. So we recently implemented a first alpha version of that. So we now have matrices and sparse arrays in SciPy. And currently sparse arrays are implemented on top of matrices. And we'd like to flip that around. So instead we'd like matrices to rather operate on top of sparse arrays, and then eventually to phase out matrices completely. I don't know how quickly we can do that. It'd be nice to get rid of them eventually. The sparse arrays, of course, we'd like to mimic the NumPy array semantics. So we'd like to support one-dimensional sparse arrays and also eventually add n-dimensional. N-dimensional might come later, but at least 1 and 2D arrays with sparse matrices built on top of them. So yeah, I'll be working on that too.
Great, thank you. Brigitta, did you want to maybe say a few words about the shared infrastructure?
Yes, so one of the other big family of topics that we thought about is, first of all, the specs. I think most of you know about the specs themselves. So these are documents that the core libraries are addressing problems and issues and topics that affects the core libraries and also maybe other more domain-specific libraries. But most of the specs we have currently are in draft forms, and many of them are missing infrastructure around it. For example, we have one that says that we should build wheels for development version of packages and then use these development versions in downstream CI testing. But we don't really suggest or show of how to do this. So this would be one of the topics I'm very much interested in, to build these small bits and pieces of infrastructure or a template or in a CI, like a job, that this would be the job you are pulling in the development version of NumPy, SciPy, whatever upstream libraries, providing it, and then stick it into your GitHub Actions. So that would be the first topic, and also to finish up a few specs and move them out from the draft status into the implemented and endorsed version. Then another group of topic is that many of the libraries are facing the very same problems with their doc testing and documentation build of how to doc test numerical codes and examples. And many have developed their in-house version of allowing it, because PyTest is not a scientific tool primarily, so we needed to build extensions to it. But most of the libraries only have like a very small amount of personnel to support and maintain these auxiliary tools, and the libraries might not even know what each others are using. So the idea here would be to aggregate the needs. What features would you need in addition to PyTest to do this, and then basically to centralize these efforts. We started doing it during the NumFocus Summit. We haven't finished it, so in the ideal world, I would really love to see that, for example, PyTest DocTest Plus gets added, new features, and then moved into the scientific Python organization. Same can be told about Swings extensions. And then the third big topic is that many libraries start to build Jupyter notebook-based tutorials and then host them. I'm thinking, for example, the NumPy tutorials, the NetworkX tutorials, then smaller projects like domain-specific libraries are building their very same thing. And a couple of us are maintaining the infrastructure around it, but currently we basically have to go into each and every repo and then update it when something changes upstream, and we communicate with each other, but not necessarily, it's not really a centralized effort in a sense that if something happens, we figure out what happened and then we try to move it everywhere we know about. But it's not really ideal. And at the moment, we can handle the 5, 6 such repos, but not when, or there will be more. So the vision is to have a template or have an easier way to update this infrastructure, and also to collect and build up communication with the Jupyter book themselves. If there are some missing features that the scientific libraries would need, it might be, a better priority than if I, as Brigitta suggest, a missing feature. And also, we just within ourselves, if we figure out if we contribute to the upstream effort of how to focus the attention, or where to focus our attention. I think that was it.
Thanks, Brigitta. So just one more sort of topic, and again, these are just to get sort of an idea of the kind of the scope of things. Juanita, do you want to say some stuff more about the community and sort of documentation side of things?
Yeah, so maybe for people who don't want to do like super technical stuff, I also want to propose some topics on documentation and community. So in particular, we were working previously with Jarrod and Stéfan in doing some onboarding guides for people to learn about the ecosystem, and yeah, sort of like documentation videos. Doesn't have to be videos, but sort of like content to help people get familiar with the ecosystem, and yeah, sort of like guides for new contributors and new developers. And I think that would also be something to work on. And I am also very interested in working on community guides for community managers. So like, what should a community manager do like within the like a scientific Python package? So I think that's some of the things we can also work on. If you have more ideas on community stuff that we can do, also feel free to say so, because that's also one possibility of things that we can do during the summit.
Great, thank you. And so just one other bit of advice. So we're going to be figuring out what's going on, and it's likely that there's going to be a lot of topics that, I mean, at least for me, almost everything is of interest to me. So I will have to probably prioritize one of the things I want to work on during this week, but I'll be moving to other aspects as well. So I'm imagining it might look like if I work on one of the projects, it might be substantial enough that it goes the whole week, and then I might work for a few days on it, and then briefly step into another group just to see what they're doing, come back. But also I'll probably be paying attention to a lot of the projects going in. So I'll be commenting on stuff that I'm not working on just to get my input. And then hopefully I'll be like contributing and paying attention to things outside the meeting. So I encourage everyone to think about, don't overextend yourself. Really try to think of something that you really want to do a lot with the people that are coming to this meeting. But also we should make sure we're keeping track of each other and understanding what everyone's doing so that we're sharing that information and bringing it back to our communities. There's some online questions.
Can I just say something real quick? Yes. So for those ideas that you're commenting on the chat, is it possible for you to comment them on the HackMD? Because I think the chat might be like, I don't know, it might not get recorded. So maybe it's easier if if we have everything on the HackMD. And also, if you already joined our Discord server, can you also make sure you put your username besides your name? Because there's some people with weird usernames, and I'm not going to be able to find them unless you give me your username. So please put your username if you don't have your name as your username. Thank you.
Okay, so just can I add something to
Please.
What you said? Yep. Okay, so first I saw your question, Stéfan, in the chat. So I'm responding on the pad regarding sparse matrices. And yeah, so regarding what you said for like onboarding contents or even blogs, I'm interested to see how we can foster like you know, content generally. So someone in the chat, yeah, so I'm not sure about how to pronounce the name. So Mridul Seth said that like we should probably move some content out of private blogs and have something that is like put on like the blog on Scientific Python. I'm personally interested in this because I would like to write technical content, but I'm not sure if it's would better fit into learn the Scientific Python or something else. So I think this is something valuable if you want to share knowledge and to be able to better work. So yeah.
I think at first it does not really matter where it goes. I think the most important thing at first is just to get some content, and then we can move the content if we judge it's better to put it on Learn or someplace else.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to show people that this is living, this is a thing, we just need to get some content rolling.
Okay. It's more than like, you know, sometimes people have like notes that are personal, like, you know, for instance, Satan or other things. And those may be consolidated so that we have like content. So yeah. Just like another thing. So just to mention that I'm interested, not that it's a strong priority for me. I think the point on like sparse arrays is like sufficient enough.
Since there's a pause in the conversation, I'll also just maybe riff on some of Matthias had mentioned that he would be up to move his backport bot to Scientific Python. And I think that's the kind of thing we should also think about during this. There's probably a lot of tools that we have that really don't belong in like some silo of the ecosystem, but like should be much more branded for across the ecosystem. And of course, that might actually require some refactoring of the code and things like that. So I think that's a totally legitimate use of this. You know, if you have some project that's been very useful for your community, and then there seems to be some traction across other projects in the discussions, you know, that would be a little short sprint, maybe moving something to a more visible location, rebranding, making it more generic, maybe implementing it on a couple other projects. I think that'd be really useful.
Yeah, I just put a comment in the chat about metrics, and I know that you all have some really great funding to do metrics, and from PyOpenSci's perspective, we're definitely thinking about that. And I started doing some stuff, just like hitting the GitHub API just to like update some of our content. And I'm like, wow, I could get package stars and like all kinds of stuff. So I'd love to talk about that because there's no need for me to reinvent a wheel that y'all are already working on, but I'd love to understand kind of the shared goals and that kind of thing. So that could be a great work time to talk about those things and maybe even do some work on it.
Absolutely. I was going to say, some people had mentioned some of the web stuff. So the Scientific Python project, we do have funding for 2 years of full-time web development stuff. And so unless that's your real passion, I think it probably is not the best place to work since we'll probably be replacing a lot of the tooling we have over the next year or so, hopefully with a full-time professional web person.
But if you know of someone whose passion that is,
yes.
let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, we also we have the money, but we don't have the person yet. So we're talking to some people, but our sense is we would rather get someone that's tied into the community with some web background than like someone that doesn't really understand the community, because I think with whatever we're left with, it's going to have to be something the community can maintain and own. We don't want to get it so far away from us that it's no longer controllable.
I have a question regarding the dev.py. Now that we see all these patch and PDM and other things coming up, is there a wish to kind of, instead of having dev.py, merge this into a plugin, which is going to be able to interact with patch and these kind of other package managers? Or
so yeah, so the idea behind dev.py is that it's very easily customizable, so each project can make it exactly what they need it to be. I think ultimately, we'll start seeing a core set of commands come out, like dev.py build, dev.py test, dev.py doc, whatever. But how that's implemented may need to look slightly different for each project. So I don't think we can rely on. It's just not sensible to rely on the default build tools to provide something that'll work for each and every project. So
not necessarily rely on, but be able to interact so that users still do pip install stuff, and then it's triggering in the background what we need for.
Yeah, so with dev.py, you can very easily call whatever you like. So the idea is that a developer that hops between different projects like NumPy, SciPy, scikit-image, they can always just do dev.py build, and it will invoke Meson or Hatch or whatever is being used in the background, PDM, whatever, and do the right thing.
And I mean, as the solution progresses, do you see this competing then with Patch and PDM and or stuff like that, or being complementary?
No, not at all. I mean, we're not trying to build systems or trying to do any of the. We're not trying to write any of the code that does the work. We're just an interface on top of that, and an interface that's easy to organize for the project, so it looks exactly the way they like.
Yeah, I'm asking because for me, Hatch, for instance, it's the same thing. It's calling a build backend, which is hatchling, and doing a lot of automation like that, and just built on standards. So to me, it sounds a bit like dev.py. It's somehow similar.
I think the way you have to think about it is basically like we used to use makefiles for this. So NumPy, SciPy, all these projects had large makefiles with different targets. This just gives us a bit more flexibility. You can add flags, you can provide better help, but in essence, it's just a way to invoke other commands in a uniform way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I certainly don't want to stifle conversation or anything, but we've had about 30 minutes, and I would be completely happy with leaving a meeting early. There's a lot of work to be done afterwards. I'm willing to stay on for a bit, but if you kind of got the general idea and you feel like you can just jump in when we send you an email to where to start discussing stuff, that's fine with me. But yeah, I also, if people have more time, this is a general discussion. Maybe throw out topics or things that you might want people to work on with you.
Yeah, I'd love to know if we missed any big topics.
Yeah, so Leah was just asking how we're going to organize ahead of time. So that's something that we've been discussing internally, and there's been some idea about just using GitHub issues or GitHub projects, and there's been a discussion about using some brain mapping software to get started, just because we were wanting a little more flexibility to throw out ideas and vote and move things around. So I think, Brigitta, do you want to say something about that? And then I think what we'll do is have brain mapping software, and then we'll move to GitHub issues and projects and stuff once we have things nailed down a bit more.
Yeah, not yet. The dog ate my homework, sorry.
So maybe, Jarrod, can I make a suggestion? So we have a planner right now with all the high-level topics that we identified before the meeting listed. So maybe we could just start with that for now and have people comment and add additional ideas there, and then we can If we find a different system that we want to interact with, we can port that content over later. I just like for there to be a single place now where people can put their thoughts as they arise.
Also do hit me with ideas if you run into a tool that you think would be useful for like this very fluffy moving ideas around type of tool, freely available and accessible for all of this group. DM on Discord would be great. Thanks.
So there's a question about Discord channel.
So I will invite you to a private Discord channel that we will have for the summit. So for clarification, this is not for discussing the topics. The topics discussion we want to keep open. So for now, we're going to do, as Stéfan said, on the issue tracker of the summit. I'll send the link in short. The Discord is only for like logistic stuff. So like, I don't know, meeting hours, meeting times, like, or like specific questions that you have about the summit, but not topic discussions. Like topic discussions we want to keep open. I'm just having this like channel private so we don't have to like bother a lot of people in the Discord channel with things that don't concern them. And I will invite you shortly. You should be there by the end of tomorrow. If you make sure you add your username to the HackMD.
Jarrod, do you see Tim's question?
Yeah, I was just, is that the one I just read? Which one is that one? The last one about the overview?
Give a little overview of what the plan is for the next few
Yeah, I was just going through it. Yeah, so the basic plan for the next meeting is I don't know that we'll need an all-hands meeting like this. What I'm imagining is that it'll end up looking like, so last semester or the end of last year, we had a domain stack summit and a sparse array summit. And so I imagine what will happen is that we will start moving to more topic specific. So, and we'll set up that with smaller groups. So, depending how many topics there are, some of these groups might be like 2 or 3 people meeting once a month. And then at that point, maybe they just meet on like a really low bandwidth channel. But if there's more complicated things, like I'm imagining the build system. So we've invited people from Meson, we've invited people from PyPA, we've invited people from CI Build Will, DevPy. And so there's all these different tools. So that, if everyone shows up, might be 5 or 10 people working on it. For the sparse array stuff, that one also might have a lot of people on it. But then some other topic might be small. And so I think for those meetings, we'll just figure out what needs to be done online. But I'm hoping at least everyone can commit to following the stuff online and then doing at least a 1 hour meeting in March at some point, and then in April before we meet in May. And those 1 hour meetings don't have to go the whole time. It's just, I think, in addition to doing stuff asynchronously, it'd be nice for the groups to have at least 2 little planning meetings, just so that when we hit the ground in Seattle, there's no 2 or 3 days of wasted time trying to figure out what to work on. We would really want to make sure we take advantage of that time as much as possible. Juanita will be doing a lot of logistic stuff, so make sure you're not blocking her emails or anything like that. And we'll be announcing things, and there'll be a calendar entry too that we'll put on the Scientific Python calendar. So you can subscribe to that, but you probably won't want to go to all the meetings. Or I don't know, maybe people like meetings. I don't think this is the crew. There was also a discussion or a question about benchmarking. Yeah, so that's something that I think also would be a totally reasonable topic. Yeah, I just started looking at making a couple PRs to ASV, and it clearly can use some help. And it needs a new release out at some point soon. And there's other tools too. I think I haven't looked at it too much, but like the PyTest benchmark. So I know different people have different uses for it, but that would be something I think would be really useful, especially if projects are already using it and want to have really good patterns for benchmarking they want to export. Did I mention? I'm just looking through about what other topics I missed.
Yeah, also if there are any topics from this group attending, please feel free to mention it now.
Yep. Yeah. So I think I'm not going to like keep us on too much longer. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone, and I think that this is also a new type of meeting for Stéfan and Brigitta and I think, and Juanita. I think it's a new one for the community. So I really appreciate everyone's willingness to experiment with us on this format. I think we're a bunch of open source community-driven developers, so I'm hoping that this sort of completely free-form, no agenda, everyone figures it out thing works smoothly. If nothing else, I mean, I think Stéfan and Brigitta and I would be willing to step in and be more controlling or steering of this if it needs to be, just to make sure. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But if people start feeling that this is too free form, we can probably try to add more structure, but I don't think it's needed yet. Any other questions or missing topics?
There's one question in the chat.
Yes, release managers. Yes, I would also like to talk about release stuff. So that's very related to the build wheel system from my perspective, because I'm working on trying to get Sanket image out for the last couple of months, and it's all been like Meson and Sanket build wheel. There's also been discussions I've seen in different places about how to do change logs. There's things about discussions about branching. There's also the spec 0, which I think there should be a lot more coordinated release management. So I keep running into problems where the new version of SciPy doesn't work with the new version of NetworkX or whatever else. So I think we should make sure that at least for all the really core packages, that all of the nightly builds run against each other, so that when we do releases, there's never big problems there. I don't know that they have to need to come out at the same time necessarily, but I think that would even be nice long term to imagine like almost a synchronous release of at least once a year of NumPy, SciPy, whatever. So I think there's lots of issues about release management, coordinating releases. Breaking them all the time, exactly. So I don't know. There's a lot of release managers coming too, so that's I think a very easy, useful topic to think about. Even if the work for this project is just to write down a list of all the changelog sources and what project uses them. Yep. Yeah, so definitely there's a lot of release stuff. Leah, maybe?
Yeah, just I put a comment in the notes, and this I don't know if this is just a couple chats at that event, but one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is that we're creating a lot of policy around things like the current thing is telemetry in open source, and I feel like that really will influence. I feel like those conversations need to have input from the broader community, and I know that we're talking about it in PyOpenSci, and I try to engage with this community as well, and we want it to be an open conversation. So I wondered if we could take a little bit of time at the summit to just maybe talk about how PyOpenSci can make decisions in a way that the broader community is, feels like they're a part of those decisions. I've been trying to do that, but I think having those in-person conversations would just be helpful. So maybe it's not specifically about telemetry, but about how do we make a decision and get the input? What is that process of our communities working together for those types of overlapping pieces?
I mean, and sort of riffing on that comment, I meant to say this earlier, I had in my notes, is that, I think a lot of us are probably have to-do lists that are longer than our expected lifespans. But so it's gonna be a temptation to just get there and do a lot of work. But I think this is also an opportunity for us to occasionally go on little walks or grab a coffee or sit around eating and just sort of have this free form. I mean, so I think we'll have a lot of ideas going in, but at least I have noticed since I've been out of the office, that moment where Stéfan and I would grab lunch every day and just riff on ideas, that's missing. So I hope that there's a lot of opportunity to come up with discussions and just, free form ideas where it's people just walking, distractedly thinking and talking. We should get a lot of work done too, but we should make sure there's time for conversation and thinking.
So I think Sanket is asking if it's okay to create issues for discussion on the project board. I would say the answer is yes, but Stéfan, you can jump in more on that. I see you're commenting some of the ideas on the issues for the summit.
Yeah, I think feel free to add things to that board. We can always reshuffle things or reorganize content later. Rather have it written down.
Yeah, and don't if you have ideas, don't wait. Write them down somewhere. And then like I said, like Stéfan said, we can grab all this detail and put it in any other system when we need to go to voting. So I think at this point, just brainstorming, grabbing ideas, if you have them, feel free. Yeah, and then there will be at least one more email this week from Brigitta, Stéfan, and Juanita and I about some of these issues, logistics and other things like that. So I'm just going to give like 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to call the meeting. Excellent. I love shorter meetings. Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to stay on for just a little bit in case anyone has a specific question, maybe Stéfan and Brigitta, just as a quick follow-up on next steps. But thanks everyone.
I think there's a team in the chat ask about the next steps and the logistics. So I think this is the main bits people might be interested in just to organize or.
Yeah, so I think what we'll try to do is by the end of this week, we'll get an email with some information about the flights and whatever the brain mapping software will be. I think those are the two main logistical issues. And then like Stéfan had mentioned for the hotel stuff, we will go ahead and try to book that ourselves once we know what people's flight plans are. Also, if anyone happens to have funding that it's very easy for them to use for their project, that'd be great. Like I said, just a few people had offered that when they replied, so we would love to take you up on that. But it's like we said, we have money, and we'll find more money if needed. Thanks, everyone. And you'll hear from us this week, and we'll have another meeting sometime soon.
Okay. Thank you, Jarrod. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.